building the skill set's what takes a really long time. But building the show was a matter of go on as many podcasts as possible so that people know where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm interviewing, the mission of the Jordan Harbinger show, all the things we're discussing. And then it's buy a crap ton of placements, ads, things like that to grow and any sort of digital footprint. But honestly, I've gotten just as much, if not more, of an audience by going on other people's shows, and then they're like, hey, this guy's kind of interesting. I wonder what the Jordan Harbinger show is like. That's the best form of advertising. So if you can't spend $400,000 a year, $500,000 a year, whatever it is on ads, don't worry. You can build your show by going on other shows. That's how most people build their shows anyways. So it's not magic. And like a lot of people think that building a business is some sort of magical journey. And in a way it is, but really once you get product market fit, it's about getting people to freaking realize that it exists. And then you're halfway there.
What's up, guys? Welcome to The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershaz, and I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, The Greatness Machine is about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world. Doing both of these despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews of world-class speakers and business leaders, showcasing their origin story, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now, so it can help you step into your greatness within your own life, business, and career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi as I say, as I leverage my 20 years in entrepreneurship as a CEO to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation and messages, and I'm stoked to have you guys here. Welcome to The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershaz, and boy, do we have a special guest today. My main man, Jordan Harbinger, on the mic. What's up, brother?
How you doing, man? You're lazy with your own last name. Like to me, it looks like Mirshazadeh. But you just said like Mirshazad. You just kind of slathered it out there. You don't even try.
I just it just rolls.
Yeah, you didn't even put any effort into that.
No, just blah. Oh man. Well, hey, welcome to The Greatness Machine, guys. I'm your host, Darius Mershaz today. And as you guys know, Greatness Machine, we're about two things: people living their passions and those creating greatness in the world. And Mr. Jordan Harbinger, wow, greatness is like your middle freaking name. So I can't wait to get after it. Yeah, dude. I knew a little bit about you and I've listened to some of your shows, but then I started doing research on you. I'm like, I want to be Jordan when I grow up. So we're going to be diving into that. Do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping, my friend?
Do it, man. Do it. It's your show.
All right, guys, we're live. So ask us questions, start a watch party, hit the like button, hit the love button, hit the hug button, hit the whatever button. We're going to be getting after it here with Jordan in just a second. But, man, I just want to say this. So I'm watching my buddy, Barry Magliardi, who's throwing some comments in here, two of the best by Barry. I'm watching his show, and you're on it down under. He's down in Australia. I guess he was in Bali maybe when you did his show. And I was like, dude, I want Jordan on my show. So I hit you up, and you were so gracious to come on, man. I'm so happy to have you here. And, man, here we are. But I always like to give a little bit of the origin story of, how this came to be. Mm-hmm. But I want to give your formal background. Do you mind if I do that?
Go for it. Yeah, sure.
Dude, you have a ridiculous background. I was
a weird kid. I'm a weird adult, but I was even more of a weird kid.
Dude, I was a super weird kid too. We have that in common. We have a few things in common. Like you have a little bit of mortgage experience, mortgage-backed securities.
Right.
I came from the mortgage industry, but yeah, man, hailing from the great state of Michigan. I saw that. I love Michigan. I got peeps in Birmingham.
Jordan, that's where I'm from. That's so funny.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, the Townsend Hotel all freaking day, baby. Yeah.
Sweeping the lobby, maybe. I couldn't afford to stay there growing up, that's for sure.
I owned an ad agency for a hot minute, and they're in Birmingham. Actually, they're in Bingham Farms now. But yeah, I used to go up there all the time. They're such good people in the state of Michigan. I really salt of the earth.
I didn't notice that until I moved to other states, and then I was like, why are people dicks for no reason? And then, you get used to it, like when you go to New York and you're like, oh, okay, they're not dicks, they're just really honest. And then you move to LA and you're like, they're not honest and they're dicks.
Yeah.
No, these people are just bad. This is just not great people. Hollywood specifically.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll hard pass on living here any longer.
The
I live in NorCal.
The worst. I grew up in Southern California. I'm Persian, which is like basically like Little Iran.
Yeah.
And then I moved to San Francisco and lived there for 17 years. And now I live in Austin, Texas. So, but I will say, man, some of my favorite people in the world, all Michigan people. So I love seeing that about you, dude.
That's like one of the common patterns right now is wherever, grow up wherever and then move to San Francisco and then move to Austin because San Francisco is so poorly run and there's literal feces everywhere.
Dude, I moved to San Francisco 2001. I didn't take the detour you took, which is going into New York, which I freaking love New York. But I went to San Francisco 2001, like fresh out of college, lived there till 17. And then I was just fucking over it. And I was like, get me out of here. My wife's family lived in Austin. And I'm like, and I'd been going there since 2004. And I'm like, dude, that place is so cool. And it was like, and by 13, I'm like, I'm out. I'm moving to Austin. It took me a few years for business reasons. But yeah, man, this place, like Austin is like what San Francisco was 15 years ago. That's what I thought.
That's kind of what I figured. I wanted to move to Austin a long time ago, but I can't because my wife's family lives here. And so we're building houses here and stuff like that. And also, since I'm essentially my business has one employee and then a bunch of contractors, it's okay for now. Yeah. But I don't blame most people for moving, especially if you can like run your company somewhere else.
Dude, I will say that. Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, even given the business you're in of, doing radio and podcasting, I mean, this is like a hub for podcasting.
Definitely.
Right? This is like it's crazy who's coming here right now. So, I mean, Joe Rogan just came here and there's a bunch of other people here right now. And I came just because for family. And then now I'm like, wow, I kind of feel like I keep telling people this. I'm like, I feel like Austin's the center of the universe right now. And I don't, I mean, obviously I live here, so I'm biased, but I mean, Tesla just came here. I think Samsung's coming here. Apple's, building a campus here. I mean, there's a reason why all these people keep choosing Austin.
Yeah. I think it's only a matter of time. I mean, buy property. That's the moral of the story. Buy as much property as you can afford right now in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I was telling some friends cause I'm in a CEO forum that's in San Francisco, and they came out here for a forum retreat, and I said, I feel like it feels expensive because it's gone up like crazy here over the last like 5 or 10 years. I said, I feel like this is like saying like Silicon Valley was expensive in 1981.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's so expensive in Woodside.
Yeah. Like $300 per square foot. Get out of here. I'm not paying that.
Imagine when it's $4,000 a foot.
Yeah. It's like $60 a month for parking. That's ridiculous.
You're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah, exactly. My parking spot in San Francisco was $550.
No, dude. Yeah. I own an apartment building there, and I charge for tandem parking $500. That's where they got to like move their cars back out.
So ridiculous.
I will say this, man. It's getting like a lot cheaper there with COVID right now. So we'll see. We'll see if that I don't think it'll stick. I think it's going to go away pretty quick. But right now it's cheap. So get on it if you can. Dude, I'm gonna read through your bio, and then I wanted to say a few things. So Jordan's an American lawyer. I think recovering lawyers, probably. I mean, right? I mean, I'm a recovering CEO. You're definitely a recovering lawyer. Turned social dynamics expert and entrepreneur. Jordan interviews world's top performers, from legendary musicians to intelligent operatives, iconoclastic writers to visionary change makers at the Jordan Harbinger Show. And dude, 11 million downloads a month. What the fuck? That's amazing.
You were about to say that's bullshit, but that's funny.
No.
Fuck this guy.
Yeah, I'm pissed. I only get like 2 downloads. And dude, 5 languages. That's just. Are they real languages?
Yeah. So when I was young, I grew up speaking English, as you can maybe tell, and then I moved to Germany when I was in high school as an exchange student. But I ended up in the former East Germany. So the whole like, don't worry, everyone speaks English. I got there and people were like, dude, we speak Russian and German. And then like some people speak basic English. But it wasn't like in West Germany when I went there for visits and everyone spoke English and was like anxious to practice their English. I was the only American they'd ever met. So I basically just I had to learn German. It was either have no friends and not do anything for a whole year or learn German. And I quickly was like, I can't keep swimming upstream. So I learned German, and it turned out really well. It turned out I had a thing for languages. And then after that, I started studying Russian, which I don't speak anymore. And I moved to Ukraine for a minute. came out, had pretty decent, like basic Russian. And then I moved to a country called Serbia, which is in the former Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
And I worked there for over a year. And so I learned Serbian, but then I also forgot it really quickly for some reason, because I never got to that point where I got with my German, where I was like able to basically dream in it. It never really happened with Serbian because there was a lot of English there.
Yeah.
And then as I got back, I was like, oh, I'm pretty good at languages. What else should I study? And I thought about Russian, and then decided, I was going to North Korea at the time, like on and off, like every 6 months.
Yeah, why not?
Because as one does. And I was like, I'm going to learn Korean. And then I started taking Korean classes in LA. And I remember the teacher said, yeah, it's a really hard language. The only harder language than Korean is Chinese. And I was like, maybe I'll just switch to Chinese. Because if I learn Korean, I can speak to like 40 million Koreans,
right?
South Koreans. And, because North Koreans aren't even on the internet. So just forget it. So I was like, all right, 40 million. And then I was like, oh, let me Google how many people speak Chinese. Holy moly, 1.3 billion and probably going to double in our lifetime. Like, okay, this is not even it's not even like, it's foolish of me to invest in Korean as a hobby language when there's Chinese and it's the same level of difficulty / actually it's way harder, which they don't tell you.
Right.
But because of the symbols, the characters and everything.
Yeah. Total bait and switch. Yeah.
A total bait and switch. But I started learning Chinese, and then I was like, this is not, I'm doing it and I'm invested enough. And then I just kept learning it. And then I thought about quitting because I was like, how much of this do I really need? It's taking forever. And then I met my wife, whose family speaks Chinese, and I was like, this may come in handy. And now it's been like 8 years. So I'm pretty good at Mandarin at this point. I can read, I can write. And I'm like, so now I'm at the point where I'm like, God, there's so much effort here. But it's like, am I going to quit after 8 years? Hell no.
Dude.
Like, even if you hate something, you'd have to hate something to quit. And I don't hate Chinese. It just takes a lot of time.
Yeah, but I mean, at least you get like, the reality is what 1/5 of the world speaks it. So you're golden there,
Plus, I got to tell you, it never gets old busting out some Chinese when Chinese people are around and watching their heads explode because they never see it. Like,
bust some Chinese for us.
新年快乐. It means Happy New Year because it's Chinese New Year right now.
Oh yeah, all right, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Or like you can say anything, like somebody will say like and look, even ordering food, which is basic in any language, you can be like I'll have the Kung Pao chicken, or like, please give me the Kung Pao chicken, or give me a can of Coca-Cola, and they'll just be like, what? That's so good. And you're thinking, why did I read this article in Newsweek in Mandarin Chinese yesterday if all I needed to blow your mind was like ordering a Diet Coke or a can of Coke at this restaurant? Because like my Chinese teachers are like, no, dummy, the word is, timing, or what, the word is reconciliation. And I'm like, oh, I got to remember that one. Meanwhile, the waiter is like, Coca-Cola, which is Coca-Cola. Yeah, it's like really easy. So like the words that don't sound like English, they just are blown, like people get blown away by the fact, because there's just not that many non-Chinese that speak Chinese. There just aren't anywhere in the world.
Dude, so listen, yours is way more extreme, but my wife looks like pretty much like a light blonde, light brunette version of you, like as a female. This is a really getting weird.
It's a weird analogy.
Yeah, I'm really good. But she's like white, right? Like she's like a white person, and she's got fair skin and kind of fair features. And she speaks like with a freaking like gnarly accent Spanish. She lived in Mexico. Her mom's Mexican. But you look at her, she looks like kind of like white person, right? But she rocks Spanish hard. And when she speaks it, dude, I see what I've seen the look you're talking about. People are like, what the fuck? So I know exactly what you're talking about. I think that's hilarious though. You're like learning all the hard stuff. Oh, we got Johnny T. Two pretty sharp guys right there. Pretty sure Jordan's a fellow Seaholm Maple.
I know John Tellinger. Yeah, that's funny. What a small world.
Yeah, he's an old friend. And we had Nick Peterson. This should be on Clubhouse. Nick, come on. And Tiffany asked, Jordan, how many languages do you know? We just went over that. Cinco, right?
Somebody was late to the show.
Come on. That's my assistant, so we got to be nice. And but yeah, man, that's so badass. I love the brain explosion. You're like, I'm just gonna learn basic shit like where's the bathroom and can I get a glass of water? You know, I'm going to learn those things. You know what? That's a hack. I'm going to learn 5 sentences in Chinese, and I'm going to go rock them next time I go to get dim sum.
I think they're going to be super, super blown away. Like no one at a restaurant is ever like, does he really know Chinese? Let me ask him a complex question. They're just impressed. They don't even try to like, test you or anything. Whereas I think, if you look like you're supposed to speak a language, it's really unfair. So all my Asian friends, and I have plenty now out here in California, as you might imagine, they're like, man, this is so unfair, Jordan, because I'll go and order Kung Pao chicken or something and then be like, your restaurant is really nice, whatever. And they'll have a full-blown conversation with the waitress, and she's not impressed at all. And the guy's like, dude, I was born in San Francisco. My parents, I majored in Chinese in college. I have worked for a decade to be able to speak this way. It's like a Korean guy. It doesn't even, but they're just like, yeah, you better speak Chinese, Asian. Like, even Chinese people are like, you know Chinese. And it's like,
you're Korean.
I'm Korean. I'm Vietnamese, whatever. But if I do it, people are like, holy shit, this is amazing. Look at that guy speak that language that's not English.
I'm gonna do like a derivative sentence, like, hey, can I get my water without ice? Like something where it's like not normal, not basic. Yeah, I'm gonna learn something really fucked up to say. Oh man, that's incredible. So hold on. So why the hell did you go to East? Did you go to Berlin?
No, so when you're an exchange student, you think, I'm going to Berlin, it's going to be amazing. No, you never go to, it's like all those Europeans, French people that come in the United States and like, yeah, I want to go to New York or Chicago. And it's like, bro, you're going to be on a farm in Montana. If you're lucky, if you're lucky, people aren't going to be like swamp creatures that just have you there for manual labor.
Yeah.
And so I originally got placed on a farm and I said, I'm not going. And they were like, look, man, everyone gets placed on a farm. And I was like, then I'm not going to go. And the exchange organization was like, you suck. This guy sucks.
Oh, you did suck.
Yeah, because you're not supposed to do that.
Well, I would have done that. I'm not going to work on a farm.
Hell no. And also, like, small town village life sucks anywhere. In America, in Germany, it's very similar. There's 10 kids in the neighborhood. They're all in each other's business. You're not interested in anyone romantically. They're never doing anything except for the same, they're all smoking in some barn like all the time. And they're bored because you can't ever do anything. And you're 3 hours away from the next town. So everyone takes a train in and then like drinks at a bar and comes home and you're like, my life is so boring. Yeah. But since I said no, they were like, well, you're not necessarily going to get a family placement and not go. And I was like, fine. And my parents were not happy because they were like, well, what happens if you don't go? You're just got to like go to senior year. And I was like, yeah, I'll just be a senior. Like, I don't care because I skipped my senior year. That was the thing that I'd skipped for. And luckily, a few months before going, or a few weeks, can't remember now, I got placed in this like mid-sized town that was not a suburb, but it was a city with like a couple 100,000 people. So I was like, all right, great.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be in the former East. And I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be, they were like, we got to warn you, there's 47 exchange students in Germany. 44 of them are in West Germany. 3 of you are in the former East Germany. One guy's in, Berlin. One guy's in like Magdeburg, which is like a capital of some state, basically, like being in Lansing,
like Sacramento.
Yeah, and then I'm in Halle, which is like a Detroit-ish type city, and they're like, it's the former East. It's not super like the city that you're in is famous for like chemicals and like things like that, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But I went, and it was like it was not a super great place to live in terms of a city. I loved it. My friends are awesome. My host family there is awesome. I'm still in touch with everyone. But like, it was kind of like the Detroit. It was a city where it was like kind of on a downward slide, whereas the rest of the whole country was kind of on an upward, going up. And they were improving things, but the improvements were like, oh yeah, it's so nice because when I was younger, the trees were all gray because there was a chemical residue on all of them from the manufacturing plant nearby. And it's cool. Like, there's so many colors now. And I'm like, that's the improvement we're looking at here. I was hoping for like fiber optic internet or whatever. I don't know, like whatever I was hoping for was certainly not the fact that like the trees aren't gray.
The half-life of the nuclear activity here is not quite as bad as
I mean, this like for people that don't know, former East Germany was it was a Soviet satellite state. It was like a brutally repressive regime with the Stasi, which are these secret police that were kind of like Gestapo, but communist. And it was one of the most, it was sort of like North Korea-ish in terms of the repression on its citizenry. It was bad. And so like I met people that like had scars and I was like, what are these from? And they were from like, you know, getting burned with acid from like working in a factory that had no safety, you know, it's stuff like that. Or like people that had lost relatives trying to escape because there was a border with landmines. I mean, it was like no joke. So, but I loved it there because it was so different. But it took me a long time to kind of get over the fact that I was in a place with like skinheads, you know what I mean? And like neo-Nazis and crazy people like that. But I had an awesome, awesome family that I'm still in touch with. And it was one of those sort of like do or die situations. It was like go home and just be done with this place, or like go all in and be like, YOLO, you're only here once. Like you can't sit here and whine about how the food's not the same, or like you don't like the posters in your whatever the like BS that teenagers complain about. Right. I had to sort of like be like, no, I'm doing this. I'm going to learn German. I'm going to work hard, and I did, and it was so worth it. It was such a rewarding experience.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, like for people that don't remember, there was a song by Scorpions, "The Winds of Change," which was about the falling of the wall that happened. Yeah. Like, I mean, it was a big deal when that happened.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And you know, so you were what, 17 when you were there, right?
Yeah, I was 17. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And was that the first time you had done anything international traveling by yourself?
No, wait, yeah, by myself? Oh, certainly. Yeah, so I think the reason I decided to go on the exchange originally was when I was in middle school, I was kind of bored. I was getting in trouble. I was doing like a lot of bad stuff. Like I was doing like credit card fraud and stuff. Not like Jordan wrote his name with a Sharpie on the stall in the bathroom. It was like I was ordering like electronic parts and cellular phone stuff off of like catalogs with credit card numbers that weren't real, you know, like bad. And then my parents were like, all right, he needs to get straightened out. But that summer, my best friend was leaving for like a month. And I was like, my parents were like, oh my God, he's going to get in so much trouble if he's like left to his own devices. And my best friend was going to Europe with his mom. And then they were like, why don't you come with us? And I was like, that sounds great. And my mom's like, they don't really want you to go with them. Come on. But they did. And I went, and I remember being like, wait a minute, we're allowed to have a beer and be normal and like go do stuff on our own in Rome, because we went to France, Italy, and Germany. And we were, I remember like your parents, and when you're growing up in frickin' Michigan, your parents, when you're 14 or 13 years old or 14, however old we were, they're not like, sure, just come back to the hotel by 8 p.m. But I'm in Rome. There's thousands of teenagers from all over the world sitting on the Spanish Steps and down to like the middle of Rome. And I remember my friend's mom's like, I'm going to go look at jewelry. I know you guys don't want to do that. So just meet up for dinner at 7 p.m.
And wait, you were 14?
I'm 14.
Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome.
And we meet these Italian guys in our hotel that are like playing Super Nintendo or something. And we're like, hey, we're going to go out. And they're like, yeah, we're going to go out. Let's play Street Fighter. So we played Street Fighter for like an hour. And then we're like, hey, we're not from Rome. We kind of want to see what's going on. And they're like, let's just all go out. So these guys that didn't barely speak any English took us to like bars. We're like watching soccer games. We started playing hacky sack and we started chatting up girl. And I was like, this is the time of my life right now. And so then I go back to Michigan where like you're 16, you have your own car and your mom's like, be home at 8 p.m. And you're like, cool, there's literally nothing to fucking do anyway. Right. So, and John Tallinger, who's hopefully still watching, knows what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. You're going to like one parking lot to another to see who's standing in the parking lot smoking, and you're like, this sucks.
Let's go to Taco Bell and get into a fight.
Yeah, dude, so accurate. No one has any money. Let's just get into a fight, right? Exactly. We're just straight up bored. So I was like, I need to get back to doing European things because everyone there is having a billion times more fun really living life. In America, the values just didn't make any sense. Like we were all being treated like kids and then we were acting like kids because we were being babied. Whereas in Europe, they're like, try not to get anyone pregnant. And then somehow you're like, oh, okay, it's actually not that hard because I've got all these friends doing things that aren't just like doing drugs and staying at home and trying not to get caught. Totally. So I decided to go on a foreign exchange because again, in high school, I was literally like the one driving around from one parking lot to another. And I told my girlfriend at the time, I'm going to get in trouble again. I just know it. I like feel it coming on, you know? And she goes, what are you going to do? And I go, I don't know, maybe graduate early. And she goes, by the way, I'm leaving for boarding school. I'm going to go to boarding school in Norway because I hate going to school in Michigan. So she left and she's like, you should go too. And I was like, let me stop you right there. Your mom's a senator. My mom's not going to be like, my parents aren't going to be like sending me to boarding school in Norway for $25,000 or $40,000 a year or whatever. Like, not happening.
No.
So she goes, well, why don't you be an exchange student? And I said, yeah, that sounds fun. She's like, here's the catalog that my mom has in her office because she's a senator and they send her this crap and she's supposed to go to schools and talk about it. And she's just gave it to me. And I was like, you're telling me I can look through this book of different countries and pick a place to go to and just go there for a year? And she's like, yeah, that's how exchanges work. So I picked Israel. My parents were like, no way. They're blowing each other up over there. And then I picked Hong Kong and they were like, no way. China's taking over. And last time communists took over a country, they built a wall and they didn't let anyone out ever. Yeah. So hell no, dude. And then I was like, all right, fine. So I basically said, somewhere in Europe, is that going to fly? And she's like, great. I didn't like French. I didn't want to go to Australia or the UK because they spoke English and it didn't make any sense. I think I basically just spun the globe and hit Germany, or spun the European map anyway and hit Germany. And that's how I ended up there. And it, like I said, it was definitely the most rewarding experience of my life. And now I realize, like, you really, as a kid who's precocious or whatever the word is, you have to get out and do stuff. I am a firm believer that there are huge numbers of people that are in prison right now because they were straight up, like, not challenged. And so they started a business doing something that got them in trouble, and then they went to jail. Like, I'm not talking about violent crime, but when I do work in prisons, there are guys in there that are like in there for various types of fraud. And I'm like, bro, you were literally just bored. 100%. You're so smart. You should have been an engineer.
Totally. Yeah. Like, do you do like Defy or do you do Hustle 2.0?
Yeah. Hustle 2.0, Defy. Yeah, I've done both, actually.
Yeah. I know Cat Hoke.
Okay.
I was supposed to do Hustle 2.0 and my plane from New York got freaking canceled. I just sleep on the floor of Terminal 4 in JFK. It was the worst.
Gross.
Yeah. But yeah, it was so gross and it sucked because I missed my trip for Hustle 2.0. But anyhow, John Tallinger says, don't ask why I still live in Michigan, Jordan.
No, why? You know, it's probably, here's the thing. I'm sure it's fine when you're an adult. The problem is, and I guess this is probably true for literally anywhere you live at this age, but in America, I should say, in America, ages, let's say 13, 14 up to 18, you're treated like a fucking baby.
Yeah.
But you have a mind of a really immature adult that wants to go learn and explore things. And everyone's like, nah, just memorize this verb table of Spanish or French verbs and also a bunch of dates in history. And you know, we're going to take no field trips and there's not going to be anything hands-on and you're going to have to be in class with some of the dumbest people that you know. And, you know, even if you're smart, and then you've got to work really hard because you have to get into a good college and then go into, so like, you don't feel like you have anything to look forward to that's right around the corner. Mm-hmm. And so you spend high school just being like, whatever. And if you're an adult, I'm sure it's fine. There's a lot of things going on everywhere. But I see this even here in California. I see kids like smoking in front of a 7-Eleven and I go, there's just nothing for them to do.
No,
like there's just nothing for them to do. So I'm a firm believer that like I've got to figure out what to do with my kid. He's only 18 months old now, but when he's old enough, I'm like, we got to get this kid out of the rigmarole of like going to and from meaningless courses because it just drains your ambition in your brain. And it just, it's such a time in your life where most kids, I think, need way more stimulation than they were getting in high school.
Are you guys enjoying the show so far? Darius here, and by now you might know that I'm passionate about a few things. Pizza, pink unicorns, core values, and down and dirty, interesting conversation with some amazing people. However, the biggest one that I've spent most of my career on is entrepreneurship and scale. You see, look, my first few years in business, I spent like probably a good 5 years of my life getting my freaking teeth kicked. I mean, really getting crushed. And I learned a lot during that time period. So I spent the greater part of the last couple of years helping entrepreneurs scale their businesses in a meaningful way without going through the same growing pains that I did. And what I realized is that CEOs and business leaders don't know if they can scale, and thus they do the right thing at the wrong times. This causes them to lose clarity, lose momentum, alignment, and the bottom line is you lose money. And look, you don't have to do that. It's why I created what I call the Scalability Assessment. And you can access it 100% for free. That's right, guys. There are perks to listening to The Greatness Machine. All you have to do is go to dariusscale.com. That's DARIUS scale, SCALE.com. And there you can check to see if your business is set up to scale properly. It's going to give you a scalability score at the end, and it's also going to give you some clarity on what you can do next. Once again, guys, that's www.itsdariusscale.com. Once again, guys, it's dariusscale.com. And now back to the show. Well, when you look at I was just thinking, you're having me think was it Alexander Hamilton 17 when during the Revolutionary War and they're writing he's literally writing the Declaration of Independence when he would have been a senior in high school now.
That's right? Crazy. I did not know that. That's wild.
Those dudes were all 17, 18, 19. You look at 19-year-olds now, they're because they're infantized or whatever.
Infantilized, yeah.
Infantilized. Yeah, I totally butchered that word.
Just like your last name. Can't even pronounce it.
Infantilized. So, yeah, they're infantilized so badly that they act like children, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, look, I'm a baby. My mom and dad treat me like a baby. I'm on the other end of the spectrum. Give them jobs. Let them go do cool shit. Give them space. And let them fuck up, but throw them some guardrails so they don't fuck that badly,
Yeah, it's harder here in the States than it is in Europe. Like in Europe, you can say, all right, you're 16. I know you saved your money for a train ticket and your friends want to go skiing in Italy. Just be careful. Here's 400 euros that, your Christmas and birthday present combined. And we know where your hotel is and you're going to take a train there. And yes, you're going to be drinking and staying with girls, but whatever. Yeah. Whereas in the United States, you tell a kid that he can go on a trip with his friends and you get a call at 4 o'clock in the morning from the police or the hospital, and you're just you can't sleep at night. It's way too dangerous. Everything's far away. Europe, you don't have a ton of violent crime, a ton of gun crime. Yeah. Italy is a car ride away for the adult to go pick up their kids in an emergency. It's a train ride away for them. They don't have to drive. Drinking is legal, so they're not trying to buy beer in a back alley from a sketchy person with cash. It's a totally different environment that's a lot safer for people that age to kind of just make screw ups and go around and it doesn't result in serious bodily harm most of the time.
Yeah, dude, the US sucks. We got to change our shit. So I think a lot of it stems from Puritan,
it does.
It's punishment and, oh, you can't do anything bad. I'm listen, man, when I was in high school, people were drinking, they were fucking, they were doing all the same shit that you don't want them to do. And then I'll be around parents now, they're oh, my son doesn't do anything. And I'm yeah, he does. I know. And if he doesn't, he's going to do way more worse shit later.
Yeah, definitely. I know there were parents that oh, well, we let our kids drink in the house. I'm not super wise. Yeah. Not because of your kid, but because of the other dumb kids who've never had a sip of alcohol in their life and the fact that you're going to get sued. But there is some sort of logic to this where I think the kids whose parents really let them run amok, those kids got messed up. But there were parents that knew how to give enough space for the kid to do just enough to develop. But every sheltered kid that I know is totally fucked.
Oh, dude, yeah. I went to UC Santa Barbara I went to a couple different schools, but I went to UC Davis. Then I studied abroad, semester at sea, and then I did.
That's cool.
Oh, it was amazing, man. I was 20 and I went on a ship around the world with 600 college students, which is out of control. And I was in Hong Kong in September of '98, which was actually when you were a senior in high school, right? So and that was right when they turned it over, and it was amazing. But yeah, I was running muck and it was fun. And there was kids when I got to Santa Barbara whose parents had babied them who went absolutely apeshit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, started doing hard drugs, drank like you never have seen. And that was it's a cliche, right?
Mm-hmm.
These sheltered kids get to college and literally it's no off switch, party their way, flunk out, go home, And I'm those parents didn't prepare them for this experience.
No. Those kids literally couldn't function without the super hard boundaries because they lived in look, we're talking about repressive societies. You see totalitarian regimes, their citizens don't look at Iraq, okay, to get dark for a second. When the constraints come off, there's all kinds of craziness. Some of that's sectarian violence, but a lot of it is when you have unchecked when everything is hyper regimented and there's a lid on all this stuff and there's secret police and everything is punishable by corporal punishment or capital punishment, you don't really realize that underneath the surface, there's like no one has any idea how to behave when there's not a secret police officer breathing down your neck and monitoring all your communication, right? So when that lid comes off, it's not like, hey, let's just do democracy, everyone. It's like gang, militia, mafia, rival government faction, religious cults, religious sectarian violence. All that stuff just crops up because people just look to replace one set of guardrails that's one set of overly strong, overly controlling guardrails with another one. That's why you see a lot of these countries that were like hard secular totalitarian regimes like Syria. And then it's like, yeah, hey, we're not doing that anymore. You know what we should do? Fucking ISIS, right? Because people are like, they need the rules. They don't have any culture of like self-policing.
Yeah, so it's funny you're saying that. So I'm half Iranian, right? Half Persian. And a lot of what I had heard, and I haven't been because I actually have a passport, funny enough.
Wow.
It's like a picture of me when I was 1.5 because I moved there when I was 1 year old.
Also, is that good for much of anything? I mean, I guess if you're on a boat and it gets hijacked by terrorists, you're like, I'm Iranian, man. Look, then you can use that passport. This is me as a baby. But if you're anywhere else, that passport, sew that shit into the lining of your suitcase and never show it to anyone.
It doesn't. It's not very helpful.
No.
But I have buddies who would go back there because they're Persian, their family's Persian, and they're like, yeah, we go. He's like, Darius, there's underground parties, tons of ecstasy. Like these people they're making moonshine. Dude, they're still doing it. Like that's why I'm like, why? Like I have major qualms about like the illegalization of substances. I'm like, I've never met a person in my whole life that wanted drugs that didn't go get them. I just haven't. Oh man, I wish I could get drugs, but now they're illegal. So
they're illegal. Can't get them. No, Iran's funky, man. Like a lot of the Persians, Iranians that I know that listen to the podcast that still live in Iran, or people that have emigrated, now live in the United States or Canada, they're telling me all the time that there's like certain neighborhoods in Iran where it's like wealthy sort of elites live, and they just do whatever they want. Not like, crazy dictator do whatever they want, but like they have parties, like you said, there's EDM, there's DJs. We'll go and do sets there, and it's like some of them are literally like basement nightclubs. Men and women dance together, party together. There's like same amount of orgies probably you'd find in any other major city. But then everything else is like bearded Ayatollah, under wraps.
You don't do shit,
and you don't do anything sort of in the public eye, which has to be really interesting. But I mean, you hear about people that in Iran like. They have like their Lambo that they drive around their area, and then they have like their Yugo that they drive around everywhere else because you don't really want to stick out when you're driving outside of like northeast Tehran or wherever they live.
So, dude, it's wild. I actually own a condo in Iran from when
Really?
Well, I moved there. So I was born. My mom's American. My dad was Persian. They met in America. My dad was getting his MBA in Southern California. They then moved to Iran, to Tehran. My family's from Isfahan. But they lived in Tehran. And then my mom I have a twin brother. My mom was having complications with her pregnancy, comes back to the U.S. She's American, has me and my brother. When we're 1 year old, in June of 79, we moved back to Iran. Dude, June,
terrible time.
August, September, October, November.
Yeah.
Dude, movie Argo happens like down the block from my house.
Yeah, sure,
right?
sure.
So we flee the country and we move back to the United States. So, if that shit didn't happen, I would be inviting you to my Persian live stream, and I would be speaking Farsi with a bad English accent. Like that's what should have happened, right? But 'tis life. So yeah.
Hey, how did you get out? How did your family get out?
They fled. It was like really sketchy. It's actually a really crazy story. So they fled. It was super sketchy. My dad and mom got stuck in London with me and my baby brother. We're like 1.5. They end up getting in the United States. My dad goes back by himself.
Why?
Well, because he had all his assets and stuff he was trying to get out of the country.
Oh man.
So for 18 months, right? This is from like the beginning of 1980 till like the middle of 81. He's like selling like money on the black market and swapping shit, and then basically smuggling money out of the country to get to the United States so he could build his life in the United States. He gets stuck in Paris, and they wouldn't let him back in the United States because of what was going on in Iran. My mom has to get a congressman involved, and it takes like a month to get him back in the United States. So it was like a 3-year ordeal almost.
Dude, those stories are also crazy. man. It's all the people who fled Iran always like, it's always like, yeah, we rode a camel for 5 days. And I'm like, yeah, right. And then she's like, no, really. I rode a camel for 5 days, across the desert.
Across like the mountains to get into Iraq or some other country. Kuwait.
To get into Iraq, but probably not Iraq because landmines and killing. But what to get into? What borders? Is it Azerbaijan or something like that? Is that a border country?
I think it is on the east or north.
Yeah. So like getting through there, going to apply for refugee status, ending up in France for 5 years, then moving to the United States. It's just such a mess. That whole thing is insane to me.
It's a totally gnarly story. And so my dad ends up coming to the United States, MBA. The guy was like director of sales for the entire East Asia and Europe East Asia and the Middle East for Mack Truck. And then he ends up like, dude, the guy's super educated, has to go start a gas station business, right?
Yeah, I've definitely, that's like a story of many a Persian or many an immigrant.
Right.
You'll come to the United States. I talk a lot to gas station attendants I don't see anymore because I have an electric car. But like back in the day, I would, or like when I would take the super shuttle before Uber was a thing.
Right.
And I remember talking with like a guy at a gas station who ran an IT company out of Bangladesh and then moved here and sold it. And he had a PhD in computer science, and he was like running a freaking gas station in West Bloomfield. And then my super shuttle driver was he was a surgeon, a chief surgeon at a hospital in Mexico. Now he's a super shuttle driver. Yeah. Another one was a Supreme Court justice in Mexico at one point, or like his brother was, and he came here because he was like some sort of junior federal judge of sorts in Mexico, came here because of corruption. And things like that are just sort of like depressing in a way. Like New York's full of this too. You'll be talking to the cab driver and you find out that the guy who's driving you around is like the chief of the biology department of a university. And you're just like, what? You were a tenured professor in Iran and now you're a cab driver? It's so depressing.
Well, and I mean, I grew up watching it. My dad actually ended up doing okay from a business perspective. Yeah. But I mean, I wrote a book called The Core Value Equation because I watched a person like basically hate their life and did not live an engaged life because of this thing that was taken away from them. Right.
Yeah.
And that ended up becoming a big part of my entrepreneurial journey and watching that immigrant story. And it's funny because I think if you're born and raised in the United States, and I'm half American. So I saw like the duality of having.
You're 100% American. You're half white or something, probably.
Yeah, half white, 100% American, but half Persian, right? And so just to see that experience, and it's really an interesting experience to see that firsthand. And now I watch it. I'll see people, and same thing as you. I'll ask them, "Oh, where are you from?" They'll tell me, and I'm like, "Oh, what'd you do there?" "Oh, I was, a doctor or this or that."
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, the struggle is real, brother.
Yeah. Overqualified. Yeah, but and look, there's a lot of immigrants that come from places that are not undergoing a revolution, but to lose everything in a revolution is even just so much more traumatic somehow because it happens like virtually, overnight.
Totally. Well, dude, we just got started. Man, I was looking at your profile and I'm like, you've done 468 shows for your new show, the Jordan Harbinger show. And I picked some of my favorite people that have been on the show. I just want to tell you McConaughey, Steven Schwartzman, CEO of Blackstone, Seth Godin, Russell Brand, Oliver Stone, Ray freaking Dalio, who I fucking love, Bob Saget, who I love, Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Tony Hawk, Simon Sinek, Dennis Rodman, Malcolm Gladwell, Kobe Bryant, Moby, and Chris Voss, dude. Those are just I just cherry picked my favorites. I want to ask you a question. So yeah, if you had to start over today, today's you quit your lawyer job. It's 2021. Sorry, not 2001, 20 years later, 2021.
Oh, okay. I was like, geez, I don't know what technology was available.
Yeah. And the environment is as it is right now. Can you actually recreate what you have? You're at ground zero today to go build what you have. How would you do that?
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those not so interesting answers probably because the answer is really you throw money at the problem, right? So, well, first of all, do I have my skill set of interviewing or do I have to rebuild that?
You have this is Undercover Billionaire where you have skill set, but it's like your undercover podcaster.
Got it.
So you're starting
Yeah.
at ground zero. Yeah.
Yeah. So because building the skill set's what takes a really long time, but building the show was a matter of go on as many podcasts as possible so that people know where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm interviewing, the mission of the Jordan Harbinger show, all the things we're discussing. And then it's buy a crap ton of placements, ads, things like that to grow and any sort of digital footprint. But honestly, I've gotten just as much, if not more, of an audience by going on other people's shows, and then they're like, hey, this guy's kind of interesting. I wonder what the Jordan Harbinger show is like. That's the best form of advertising. And then paying for advertising works also. So if you can't spend $400,000 a year, or $500,000 a year, whatever it is on ads, don't worry. You can build your show by going on other shows. I mean, that's how most people build their shows anyways. So it's not magic. And like a lot of people think that building a business is some sort of magical journey. And in a way it is, but really once you get product market fit, it's about getting people to freaking realize that it exists. And then you're halfway there.
So let me ask you a question about that. So, I mean, I'm going on a bunch of shows right now, and I kind of got to the point with my assistants where I'm like, look, unless they have like a decent following, I'm over it. Like it's time consuming. I'm really busy, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell I'm getting out of it. Right. So again, it's ground zero. How do you, you don't have like the card to say, hey, I want to get on some badass show, how would you navigate that part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I would go on what I did when I started again, because I had another show before this one that I ran for 11 years and I had like 700 episodes of. Yeah. And then I had a split with my business partners over like the direction of the business. And I ended up just like starting fresh. I always joke that I got fired because I technically did, but it's one of those things where I'm like, cool, you're firing me, except I'm taking all the staff, the whole audience of the show, and a bunch of the resources with me. So who got fired? But that sort of triggered me into like, okay, I need to rebuild the audience. And so what I did is I went on like 140 shows in like 8 months or 10 months or something like that. And that's a lot of shows, man. But I didn't care what size they were, because if I got 50 new listeners, 5 new listeners, that's not ideal. But I went on a bunch, and I sort of rebuilt the snowball that way. Like, and then people were like, oh, okay, this guy who I used to like over here is now over here. Right. And that helped a lot, But if you don't have any footprint, then it's going to be different than, oh, this host that I like is over in this new place. That's different than like brand new personality. So that's why it's a slow burn. But going on a bunch of shows, but like you said, don't go on shows that have 4 people watching, because it's painful. It's painful.
It's almost as painful as when I sing karaoke with less charming.
Right. I agree.
I went on a show, and I've been on a couple shows where and some of them was fucked up, is I hired a PR firm to get me on shows. Oh yeah. They got me on a couple of these shows, and I'm like, it was like the guy had no lighting. It was like they had it was almost like a drape behind them. They were like their grandmother's kitten basement, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I thought it was like, like the guy that put the lotion in the basket. Yeah, it was like that type of shit. I was like, is this guy gonna fucking kill me through the screen? Yeah. There's a lot of guys that do like the show in the basement, and the PR firms are look, I'm sure they're great at what they do in a lot of ways, but they really don't know anything about podcasting most of the time. Yeah. So whenever I get pitches from PR firms, I'm always usually underwhelmed, because I get a 3-page press release with a photo of the book, and I'm like, you don't know anything about my show. But then I'll get a 3-line email from someone that's like, hey, Jordan, checked out your episode with Ray Dalio. You'd probably really like this other person. Here's the story. Let me know if you want to know more. And I'm like, tell me more. And that's how you get in. Don't send me a 3-pager with a photograph of a book. I know what a book looks like. I don't give a shit what your particular book looks like. Right. I don't care that you were on Good Morning America. It doesn't make it. They will have anyone on there that like is in the right area and looks nice at the day of to some producer who's never done anything interesting in their whole life. Like, I don't care about any of that. So in PR firms, that's all the currency they have. They have no clue. Yeah. There's nobody you can pay has access to great shows. You always have to pitch them. There are some good podcasting agencies where they know a lot of podcasters, and like I'll answer their email because they don't pitch me like garbage. But
just certainly not a major publicity agency. Like they're just mailing releases to everybody that blogs and it has television or anything. They're not targeted at all.
So I made that mistake. Actually, they pitched you for me, and I was like, oh, and at the same day, John Vroman was like, yeah, I know Jordan. I'm like, oh, that's cool, like random, right? I had heard of your show, but within 48 hours, Vroman and I are on a walk, and he's like, yeah, my buddy Jordan Harbinger, and that's my cool. agency was like, oh, we just pitched Jordan Harbinger, and then I got on the guy, the lotion in the basket show guy instead, so it was awesome.
Yeah. It puts the lotion in the basket, or it gets the hose again.
So man, you have the show, you're kicking ass and taking names. It's really cool to watch like the lineup of people. I mean, what is it like? Like we're talking again, the show's The Greatness Machine, and you're definitely living your passions to create greatness in the world. And I look at this lineup. I mean, tell me, like, what's like the biggest takeaway you get of interviewing like such world-class brains like that? Like
yeah, I mean, it's cool to learn from folks like that, but honestly, I find that a lot of people who are well, I guess it's a difference. If you have like a celebrity on, sometimes it's really great, like a Matthew McConaughey or a Kobe Bryant, but sometimes, and I won't mention who, but sometimes you're just like, I'm talking to a famous person and they don't give a shit, you know?
Right.
It's rare because we try and screen for that, but usually I would say like the less famous people that are still super well rounded and like super successful. Like, look, Ray Dalio is well known, but he's not an A-list celebrity where he can't walk around without getting mobbed. You know, he's not Matthew McConaughey. Those are more interesting because of the amazing amounts of deep thinking that go into something. Steve Schwartzman, like you mentioned, CEO Blackstone, these are guys that sit around and think about how to spend or invest billions and billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars.
Right.
That's a different game than talking to somebody like who's a mid-level athlete that you might have heard of, where they're like, yeah, just got to put my best foot forward every time and miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Know what I mean? And I'm like, no one's getting a whole lot out of this. Yeah, it's kind of...
Wow, you just blew nobody's mind, dude.
Nobody's mind. And also, like, I know we're all impressed that you're a NBA starter for the, I don't know, Houston Rockets or what. Like, just no one... There's nothing sort of mind-blowing about that. And I notice a lot of podcasters, they make like this right turn where they're like, wait, if I stand next to a lot of celebrities, I'll become a celebrity. And I had to go make a left turn and go, I don't care about being a celebrity. I want my listeners to have a really good experience. And the way that they're going to do that is if I work really hard and find the best guests. So I'll have like a mafia enforcer. I'll have, a guy who invented poisons and bombs for Al-Qaeda and then became a counterterrorism agent. Yeah. I'll have a forger. Then I'll have Kobe Bryant, Matthew McConaughey, and these guys on. But I see other people go like, oh, how do you get them? There's no competition for a lot of these guys because other podcasters are like, such and such influencers launching a new skincare line. I'm going to have her come on. Oh, Paris Hilton's on the show. Like, I mean, and I say her because she's might even be mildly interesting. Imagine like Wish Paris Hilton or like Discount Walmart Paris Hilton. They're interviewing those people and there's just nothing interesting at all about anything that they're doing. Getting people to freaking realize that it exists. And then your listener doesn't learn anything because the whole thing's like a self-serving sort of influencer circle jerk. And it's not fun. It's a waste of time.
Yeah. Well, you got to have Ray Dalio back on when his new book, Changing World Order.
I just recorded the new one yesterday. It's going to come out in like a month.
Oh, I love that book. I've been reading it for about 2 months now because they have the PDFs online. I ordered it, and that guy Ray Dalio's God, man. That guy's so
genius.
It's so smart. I mean, it's really sad about his son just passing away, but man, yeah, that guy. I love him. When I saw you interviewed him, I'm like, that's one I want to interview him. Well, man, like we're going to get wrapped up here. Obviously, people can find you at the jordanharbinger.com. They can get you on all the major platforms. Anything else you want to share for the audience on things that are coming up or places they can find you or anything you want to promote?
Sure, yeah. I'm at Jordan Harbinger on Twitter, Instagram. I answer my DMs because a lot of people are like, oh, what about this? I love being in touch with folks. The Jordan Harbinger Show is the name of the podcast, and I would love for people to check that out. That's always the best. People will say, what about this person? What about that person? Just check out the episode with them. I really just want people to listen to what I create. I don't sell anything. And I always like to highlight that because I think there's just so many like influencers that are like, buy my course on this. I don't sell anything. I have one course and it's free. So I just love if people would check out the Jordan Harbinger show. That's my only ask.
Yeah, guys, let's do it. Let's support Jordan. What an amazing, amazing show, man. I'm so grateful to have you on here, man. This was really fun. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah, this is so cool. Guys, check out all the stuff Jordan just mentioned. We're going to put that in the show notes. Tomorrow, man, I haven't done 3 shows in a while since the book launch. We got Dr. Hobie Wedler, and he's a scientist, entrepreneur, and sensory expert, born blind, just doing amazing stuff in the organic chemistry world, champion of change, recognized by Barack Obama. I'm really pumped to have him on here. With that said, guys, we're going to peace out. Check me out. Sign up for the show at www.therealdarius.com. Peace. We're out of here, guys. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Guys, The Greatness Machine is all about 2 things. People who are living their passions and those who are creating greatness in the world, and we feature these messages and speakers so it can help you step into your greatness within your own life and your own business. If you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform you're tuning in from, and leave us a review. We love getting reviews for the show. If the episode made you think of someone who is leveling up in their business and life, print screen it, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers, and after all, we're all here to learn from one another. You can also go to our website, www.thegreatnessmachine.com. That's www.thegreatnessmachine.com, and on there, you'll see special tools to help you scale your business faster, show notes for the episode to help you integrate the lessons, and you will also get links that came out during the show. So on there, look, you can also grab a copy of my book, The Core Value Equation, which is a resource for helping CEOs and business leaders establish core values from their teams that don't suck. And mind you, a lot of them suck. Get access to this and more at www.thegreatnessmachine.com. With that said, you guys, look, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We out of here. See you guys next time.
She's my lover.